Hi everyone! So, a little while ago I promised a group of friends that I would do a video on vocal health. A friend of mine came onto a group that I'm a part of, and he had been trying to sort of record some of his songs, which I think a lot of us are doing right now because, concerts and events are being canceled. We can't get together and make music together like we usually do. And so, just in an attempt to put our art out there, put our music out there, and connect with each other in the way that we're used to, a lot of us are recording our songs, recording our music, recording ourselves singing. And sometimes we are a little bit surprised that we don't really like what we hear. And this seemed to be the case for this friend of mine who posted on this group. He listened to what he recorded, and his issue was that he sounded, I don't know, like taxed or tired or scratchy, just he didn't have the healthy, vibrant voice that he used to have when he was younger. And so he posted looking for tips on vocal health and being good to your voice. And I have thoughts about this, so I thought I'd do a video. Then I started outlining the video, and I thought instead of doing a video, I'd do a 4-part series on vocal health because I have a lot of thoughts on this. So this is going to be part 1 of a 4-part series on vocal health. The rest of the series is going to talk about vocal technique, how to warm up properly, what to do when there is something wrong with your voice, like if you're sick or if you've worn yourself out or something like that, how to recover. But today, this first video is just going to be about kind of day-to-day things that you can do to be good to your voice. Ways to live your life, maybe, that will support your vocal health, that will be good to your voice and keep you sounding and feeling good when you sing. Item 1, hydrate. Hydrate. Oh, no. Oops. Hydrate. The word hydrate comes from the Greek root hydro, or hydra. Probably hydro. I think Hydra is like a character in the Odyssey. Anyway, hydro probably. Hydro means water. So when we say hydrate, we mean drink water. Not wine, not coffee, not juice, water. Water is important. If you drink coffee, I think we all know that, coffee and tea, they're diuretics, they dehydrate you, they will actually make things worse, right? What we want is we want to sort of like lubricate our vocal folds, keep our bodies nice and hydrated. Drinking anything with caffeine in it is going to have the opposite effect. Alcohol too. Alcohol will also have the opposite effect. Alcohol is a diuretic. It can also do other wonky things to your vocal production if you have too much of it, as some of you may have discovered. But even something as benign and innocuous as juice, right? Juice isn't going to dehydrate you, but it's also not going to hydrate you as well as water will, because with juice, the stuff to water ratio is higher than it is with water, right? So with water, you're just getting all of that good hydration really directly. That's what you want. Juice doesn't do the job as well as water. You really need to be drinking water. Water is what your vocal folds need. Water is what your voice needs. So, tip 1, hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Drink a little more water than you think you need to. Always have a glass or a bottle of water next to you that you're drinking from throughout the day. That is the number 1 best thing you can do for your voice. On a day-to-day basis, all day, every day, drink water. Hydrate. Vocal health tip number 2, warm up before you sing. Every time you sing, are you going to practice? Warm up. Practicing is not warming up, right? If you're just sort of like wandering around the house trying to hit those high notes, you are not being good to your voice. You should have warmed up first, right? Warm up. I'm going to have a different, a separate video on how to warm up. I'll take you through some exercises, sort of the theory of warming up and some good exercises to do so that you know, like a nice warm up. But generally just start with like breath exercises, activating the diaphragm, and then some really easy vocalization in the comfortable part of your range, and then start pushing it a little bit on either, the high and the low end of your range. This is not where you're supposed to really be hammering those high notes and trying to extend your range, right? That's part of practicing, but it's not part of warming up. Warming up is just sort of like opening yourself up. So warm up before you practice. For God's sake, warm up before you perform. Maybe you don't feel like you have a good place to warm up. You don't have like a private place where you can go off and be alone and do crazy sounding sirens and like, right? Maybe you feel dumb. Do it anyway. You owe it to your voice to warm up. And really, the more of us like wander around going, the more normal it will be. So do it for your voice, do it for your fellow singers. Normalize warming up. Yay! Vocal health tip number 3. Warm up first thing in the morning. I told you to warm up before you sing. That's a little bit obvious, but it's not a bad idea to just warm up in the morning. We're going to be using our voices all day. Well, some of us will. Maybe you're all alone in your social distancing cave of solitude, and if that's the case, I'm very sorry. Hopefully you have a lot of Zoom meetings to keep you occupied. But on a normal day, we're going to be talking all day, just sort of casually to each other, to our friends, and that's still using our voice. It doesn't feel taxing. It doesn't feel like an athletic event like singing does, but it's still using your voice. So it couldn't hurt to just warm up in the morning. Maybe you want to warm up in the car on the way to work if you drive into work. Some of you watching this, I know, are teachers. Or perhaps you're, I don't know, a news broadcaster. I used to be a teacher, and on some days, I would just be standing in front of the class talking about immigration law, of all things, for hours on end. Like 3-hour long stretches, and then lunch, and then another 3-hour long stretch after lunch. It was brutal. And this is the time of my life that my voice sounded the worst. It was tired, it was scratchy, it didn't feel good, it was not a good scene. And it's because talking all day is really taxing. You are using your voice. I was basically running a marathon every day, and I wasn't warming up first. So if you are in one of these professions, it's really important for you to warm up in the morning before you start using your voice. A lot of people don't think of it, but it's very important. You are an endurance athlete, teacher, a vocal endurance athlete, so warm up. And like, even if you're not, maybe you're just sitting in front of a computer all day, warm up anyway. It's good for you. It's good practice. Your voice will thank you. Vocal health tip number 4. Give some thought to your speaking voice. While we're on the subject of speaking, give some thought to the vocal technique that you use when you're speaking. I am a terrible example of this. I don't speak with particularly good vocal technique. And I know I should change it. And I know I should give more thought to it. So here's the problem with my voice. I am one of those crazy sopranos that has like a very high range, but like speaks really down in my chest all the time. And so I've sort of like dug out this weird non-soprano like low range for myself too, which is strange. The middle range, no, not so much. But like I got the high range and I got the low notes. And it's because I'm always sunk down into my chest like this when I speak. To be honest, I'm always like a step or two away from vocal fry, which is not great, right? It's not the best. So when you're speaking, you want to sort of, think about normal good vocal technique. Don't sink down into your throat or your chest too much. If you're doing a lot of vocal fry all the time, that's not going to be good. I'm not here to police people's speaking voice. I'm not one of those like, oh God, vocal fry is terrible people. But if you're doing it all the time, it's legitimately bad for your voice. So don't be like me. Think light, think up. Just try to keep from sinking down into your chest and your throat, which is what I do anytime I do this motion, right? Don't do that. Think out, think light, think up. Kind of try to aim your voice like right here if you can, as opposed to down here. Vocal health tip number 5. Consider your diet. Now, the good news is I'm not here to tell you to completely revamp your diet. I'm not going to try to sell you on a vegan diet or anything like that. Whatever you eat is fine. The bad news is that what we take into our bodies goes into our bodies past our throat, and it does have an effect like a very direct effect on our vocal production. So you don't need to completely cut things out of your diet. That's not what I'm telling you to do. But immediately prior to a performance, there are some things, some foods, some drinks that you might want to avoid. If I have a performance in the evening, then for the day leading up to that concert, I will try to avoid these certain foods. And here they are. Thing number 1, avoid carbonated beverages. I'm so sorry. Carbonated beverages obviously are going to make you burp. You don't want to be burping in the middle of a performance. That would be gross. But also, they're just a little bit kind of harsh and on your vocal folds, right? On your throat, on your instrument. So I try to avoid them. I try to avoid dairy. I love you. I know. So I try not to eat cheese before a performance. After the performance, game on. Dairy can kind of gunk up your vocal folds a little bit, and it's just not great for vocal production. So in the hours leading up to a performance, avoid dairy. Avoid anything that's really cold. You're just not having a good night, are you, man? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But this includes water, right? Drinking water is good. Drinking super cold ice water, less good, right? That can kind of like when you jump into a cold swimming pool, you're right? That's not what you want your voice to do before you sing. So I avoid really, really cold things too. And finally, it's just a good idea to avoid anything that gives you acid reflux. And this is going to be different for everyone, right? I mean, a lot of people, really acidic foods like tomatoes or, orange juice or something like that, that might give you reflux. Spicy foods might give you reflux. But for me, I've never really had a problem with reflux except when I was pregnant. And then it was bread, of all things, gave me reflux. Fried foods might give you reflux. I've heard that peanut butter gives some people reflux. I don't know what's going to cause you reflux. Only you can find this out about yourself. So figure out if you have any problems with reflux, figure out what those trigger foods are. And honestly, this is the one dietary thing that I would suggest that you just implement going forward. Because the thing about acid reflux is that even if you don't notice it, you're having acid come up and basically burn the inside of your throat on an ongoing basis. So this isn't just something that's going to affect you right before a performance. This is something that's going to have sort of a cumulative ongoing effect on your vocal production. So it pays to do what you can to eliminate acid reflux across the board consistently. Vocal health tip number 6. Vocal rest is a thing. Vocal rest is when you just don't use your voice. You let it rest. If you're an athlete, you might train really hard. In between your really hard training sessions, you should have some rest days, right? You need to rest those muscles and give them a chance to recover. We rest every night, hopefully, right? The body needs a chance to rest in order to recuperate. Before a performance, maybe you want to just take it a little bit easy, right? In the day leading up to a performance, when you're not eating your cheese and you're not drinking your beer and you're not eating your spicy foods or whatever, maybe you also want to just be quiet. Don't use your voice, right? At the very least, avoid anything really taxing, right? Don't go yelling at people. Don't ride a roller coaster. If you can, though, just be quiet. Maybe after your performance, if it was a particularly taxing performance and your voice is feeling tired, you should let your voice rest. It needs to recover. So be quiet. Let it rest. Maybe the day after that, go very easy on your voice. Vocal rest can mean not talking. It can mean being completely silent. That's a really effective healing form of vocal rest. But not all of us have the luxury of doing that, right? I have a 5-year-old. I can't just not talk to my 5-year-old. That would be terrible. So instead, if my voice is really tired, if I'm really in need of some vocal rest, I might whisper. So I'm not really using my voice, but I'm still able to sort of talk if I need to. Or I might just speak in a very light voice, in a very quiet voice, and just go really easy on my voice. At the very least, I'm not going to be talking any more than I have to. I'm certainly not going to be singing. I'm certainly not going to be yelling. I'm not going to be straining my voice. I'm going to be using my voice as little and as lightly as possible. And if it is possible, I'm going to be silent. Vocal health tip number the last. Don't sing on a sick voice. This is related to the vocal rest tip from just now, right? But in particular, if you're sick and if you're sounding kind of sick, don't sing, right? Maybe your voice feels okay. Maybe you haven't lost your voice. You just notice that everything is maybe a third lower than you're used to it being. That means that your voice is not healthy and you need to engage in some vocal rest. At the very least, don't sing. I have a lot of friends who, when they get sick, they're like, hey, I'm suddenly a bass and this is really fun. Let's see how low I can sing. Let's see what low notes I can hit. Oh, I'm going to practice everything a third down, right? And it's fun. I get it. It's fun, but it's bad for you. Don't do it. Resist the temptation. If you're sick, don't sing. Right? Even if you can't do full-on vocal rest, if you need to be able to talk, do your job, talk to your kids, whatever, don't sing when you're sick. Don't sing when your voice is sick. Just wait for it to recover. And in the last video in the series, I'm going to have some tips about what to do to help your voice recover when you're sick, what you can do to sort of nurture your voice while it's recovering and kind of speed that process along. But the best thing you can do is don't push it. Don't sing while you're sick. All right, there you go. My 7 tips that you can do on a day-to-day basis that will support your vocal health and keep you sounding and feeling as good as possible when you sing. Hydrate. Warm up your voice before you sing. Warm up your voice in the morning, even if you're not going to be singing. Give some thought to your speaking voice and speaking with healthy vocal technique. Give some thought to the foods that you eat right before a performance. Avoid things that are carbonated, that are cold, avoid dairy, and avoid anything that's going to give you acid reflux. Vocal rest, do it when you need to, which can be before a performance or anytime your voice is feeling particularly tired or rough. And don't sing when you're sick. So those are my 7 tips. What I'd like you to do now is I want you to kind of go back through them. And I want you to identify 1 or 2 things that you could do differently in your day-to-day life that will support your vocal health. Maybe some bad habits that you have developed over the years, or maybe some good habits that you could get into, like warming up in the morning or something like that. Just 1 or 2 things, 1 or 2 habits that you can take on that will help support your vocal health. And then for the next week, I want you to do that. Be really conscious every day about doing those 1 or 2 things that you've picked out and see if your voice doesn't sound a little bit better in a week. Maybe journal about it. I don't know. Leave me a comment. You know what? That would be fun. Leave me a comment and tell me what 1 or 2 things you want to do differently from this video, or maybe you have other ideas. This is definitely not the Vocal Health Bible. This is just some good ideas. So leave me a comment. Tell me 1 or 2 things that you're going to do differently over the next week. And then maybe in a week, come back and tell me if your voice doesn't feel better. That would be neat. And in a week, I will be back with a new video on vocal technique and how we should sing, some sort of things to keep in mind to keep from hurting ourselves when we sing. Be good to your voices. Bye. That was really good cheese. Really good.